The stars looked different from inside an alien ship. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of the Nexus Prime, watching Earth grow smaller behind them. He had been in space before, but never on a vessel like this. The Krillian ship was massive, built from materials that seemed to shimmer and shift in the light. Everything felt wrong to his human senses. The gravity was slightly off, the air tasted metallic, and the corridors were too wide and too tall. Jake adjusted his uniform and checked his reflection in the polished wall. He looked tired. The past 3 months had been a whirlwind of preparation, training, and endless diplomatic briefings. Humanity had finally made contact with the greater galaxy, and now they were trying to join the Galactic Coalition. It should have been exciting, but Jake felt a knot of worry in his stomach. Lieutenant Amy Sullivan walked up beside him. She was his second in command, and had been with him through every major operation in the last 5 years. Her red hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her green eyes scanned the alien ship with professional caution. "The crew is nervous," she said quietly. "They can feel the tension." Jake nodded. "I know. These Krillians don't seem happy about us being here." "That's putting it mildly," Amy replied. "Did you see how their commander looked at us during boarding? Like we were insects that crawled onto his ship." Sergeant Chris Bennett joined them, his heavy boots making soft sounds on the strange floor. Chris was built like a tank with broad shoulders and hands that looked like they could crush steel. Despite his intimidating appearance, he had a gentle demeanor that made people trust him instantly. "Sir, the Krillian guards are escorting us to the meeting chamber. Commander Vexthar is ready to begin the evaluation," Chris reported. Jake took a deep breath. This was it. Humanity's future would be decided in the next few hours. He straightened his shoulders and nodded. "Let's go show them what humans are made of." The meeting chamber was enormous. The ceiling stretched up at least 50 feet, with strange lights floating in the air without any visible support. The walls were covered in what looked like living metal, pulsing with soft blue energy. Around a circular table sat representatives from a dozen different alien species. Some looked vaguely humanoid, while others were so strange that Jake had trouble understanding where their heads ended and their bodies began. Commander Vexthar sat at the head of the table. He was a Krillian, which meant he stood nearly 8 feet tall with 4 powerful arms. His skin was a deep purple color, covered in natural armor plates that looked harder than steel. His face had mandibles instead of a jaw, and his eyes were solid black orbs that reflected no light. When he spoke, his voice came out in a deep rumble that Jake felt in his chest. "The humans have arrived," Vexthar announced to the chamber. "Let us begin this evaluation." Jake walked forward with Amy and Chris flanking him. He had practiced his speech 100 times, covering humanity's achievements, their technological progress, and their desire for peaceful cooperation. He spoke clearly and confidently, presenting data on holographic displays that the Krillians provided. But as he talked, Jake noticed that Vexthar wasn't really listening. The alien commander looked bored, occasionally glancing at a device in one of his hands. Other alien representatives seemed more interested, asking questions about Earth's culture and history. But Vexthar remained dismissive. When Jake finished his presentation, Vexthar stood up. The room fell silent. "Your words are pleasant, human. Your technology is adequate for a primitive species. But words and machines do not prove worthiness. The Galactic Coalition is not a charity for weak species who beg for protection." Jake felt his jaw tighten. He kept his voice calm. "With respect, Commander, humanity has proven our capability many times. We have overcome challenges that would have destroyed lesser species. We survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. We split the atom and reached our moon with less computing power than a modern calculator. We are survivors and innovators." Vexthar's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "Survival is not strength. A parasite survives. A virus survives. You speak of reaching your own moon as if it were an achievement. My species was traveling between stars when yours was still living in caves." The other aliens shifted uncomfortably. Some seemed embarrassed by Vexthar's rudeness, but none spoke up. Jake realized that the Krillians held significant power in the coalition, and nobody wanted to challenge them. "Commander," Amy spoke up, her voice sharp, "we came here in good faith. If you have no intention of giving humanity a fair evaluation, then we are wasting everyone's time." Vexthar turned his dark eyes on her. For a long moment he simply stared. Then his mandibles spread in what Jake had learned was a Krillian smile. "You have spirit, little human. Perhaps there is more to your species than I thought. Very well. I will give you an opportunity to prove your worth. War Master Throck stepped forward from the shadows. He was even larger than Vexthar, with scars covering his armor plating. He carried 4 weapons, one in each hand, that looked like swords made of solidified light. The Krillian Empire has a tradition, Vexthar explained. All species who wish to join the coalition must demonstrate their capability through challenge. Your technology means nothing. Your words mean nothing. Only action reveals true nature. War Master Throck will face one of your warriors in combat. Non-lethal, of course. We are civilized beings. Jake's mind raced. This was not part of the agreed protocol. Earth's diplomats had negotiated for months to avoid exactly this kind of situation. But he could see the trap. If they refused, humanity would look weak. If they accepted and lost, humanity would still look weak. Either way, Vexthar won. What are the terms? Jake asked carefully. Simple combat. Traditional weapons only. Energy dampened so they stun rather than kill. First to yield or fall unconscious loses. If your warrior wins, humanity joins the coalition immediately. If your warrior loses, your application is rejected for 100 years. Do you accept? The room was completely silent. Jake looked at Amy and Chris. Amy's face was pale but determined. Chris just gave a small nod. Jake turned back to Vexthar. We accept your challenge, Commander. When and where? Vexthar's mandibles spread wider. Excellent. We will use Gateway 7, a neutral station, 3 days from now. Prepare your warrior well, human. The galaxy will be watching. As they left the chamber, Jake could hear the aliens already discussing the upcoming match. None of them thought humanity had a chance. The Krillians were legendary warriors, trained from birth in combat. Throck had won over 300 matches without a single defeat. Back in their assigned quarters, Amy paced back and forth. This is insane. We are not soldiers. We are diplomats. Chris sat quietly in the corner, already mentally preparing himself. Jake knew what he had to do. I will fight Throck myself, Jake said. Absolutely not, Amy protested. Sir, I am the better combat specialist. Let me do this. Jake shook his head. I cannot ask you to risk yourself for my decision. I accepted the challenge. I will face the consequences. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Jake trained constantly, studying recordings of Krillian combat styles. He practiced with energy weapons and studied Throck's previous matches. But no matter how much he prepared, the odds seemed impossible. On the morning of the challenge, as they traveled to Gateway 7, Jake stood in the observation deck again. Amy joined him. You know you can still back out, she said softly. Jake smiled. And miss my chance to make history? Not a chance. That is what worries me, Amy replied. What kind of history are we about to make? Gateway 7 was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The station floated in neutral space, equidistant from a dozen major star systems. It was a massive ring structure that rotated slowly, creating artificial gravity through centrifugal force. Thousands of ships were docked along its outer rim, representing every species in the known galaxy. This was where the galaxy came together for trade, diplomacy, and apparently entertainment. The combat arena was located in the central hub of the station. As Jake walked through the corridors with Amy and Chris, he could see aliens of every shape and size moving toward the same destination. Word had spread quickly about the challenge. A human was going to fight War Master Throck. The galaxy wanted to watch. There must be thousands of them, Chris observed, watching the crowds flow toward the arena entrance. Amy checked her datapad. Actually, there are over 50,000 registered spectators, and millions more watching on broadcasts across Coalition space. We are the entertainment of the century. Jake tried not to think about that. He focused on his breathing, on staying calm and centered. He had spent the last 3 days preparing his body and mind. He had studied every recording of Throck's fights, looking for weaknesses and patterns. But the truth was simple. Throck was bigger, stronger, faster, and had 4 arms to Jake's 2. The Krillian had been training for combat since birth. Jake had been a pilot before becoming a captain. The waiting room was small and quiet, a stark contrast to the noise outside. Jake could hear the crowd through the walls, their excitement building. He sat on a bench and closed his eyes, trying to find his center like his old martial arts instructor had taught him years ago. Amy knelt in front of him. Jake, listen to me. You do not have to do this. We can forfeit. We can find another way. There is no other way, Jake replied, opening his eyes. Vexthar made sure of that. This is not just about winning or losing. This is about showing the galaxy that humans deserve respect. Even if I lose, I need to show them that we do not back down from a challenge. Chris handed Jake a bottle of water. For what it is worth, sir, I think you have a chance. I have seen you move. You are faster than you look, and you are smarter than Throck expects. Jake smiled. Thanks, Chris, that means a lot. A door opened, and a small alien with blue skin and 6 eyes entered. It spoke in a high-pitched voice that Jake's translator converted to English. Captain Jake Morrison, it is time. Please follow me to the arena entrance. Jake stood up and rolled his shoulders. Amy handed him the energy weapon he would use in the fight. It looked like a short sword, but when activated it would generate a blade of contained plasma. The weapon was set to stun mode, which meant it would hurt like hell but would not kill. Probably. Remember, Amy said, gripping his arm. Throck will try to end this quickly. Do not let him control the pace. Make him work for it. And whatever happens, we are proud of you. Jake nodded and followed the small alien through a tunnel that led to the arena floor. As he walked, the sound of the crowd grew louder and louder until it was almost deafening. Then he stepped out into the light. The arena was massive, easily twice the size of a football field. The floor was made of a smooth gray material that had some give to it, like a wrestling mat. Above, the curved ceiling was transparent, showing the stars beyond. All around the arena, rising up in tiers, were seats filled with thousands of aliens. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing Jake's face from multiple angles. He had never felt so exposed in his life. On the opposite side of the arena, Throck emerged from his own entrance tunnel. The crowd erupted in cheers. The War Master raised all 4 of his arms, and the noise somehow got even louder. He was a terrifying sight. His armor plating was decorated with marks that Jake guessed represented his victories. He carried 4 plasma blades, 1 in each hand, and moved with the confident grace of a born predator. In the center of the arena, a floating platform held a single alien who served as the match referee. This creature looked like a floating jellyfish with glowing tentacles. Its voice boomed across the arena, amplified by hidden speakers. Welcome, citizens of the Galactic Coalition, to this historic challenge. Today, the human species seeks to prove their worth. Captain Jake Morrison of Earth will face War Master Throck of the Krillian Empire in traditional combat. The rules are simple. First to yield or fall unconscious loses. Weapons are set to stun mode. There are no other restrictions. Combatants, take your positions. Jake walked to the center of the arena. His legs felt heavy, but he kept his head high. Throck approached from the other side, and Jake was struck by just how big the Krillian really was. Standing next to him, Jake felt like a child. You are brave, human, Throck said, his voice surprisingly respectful. But bravery without skill is just foolishness. I will try to make this quick. You will feel less pain that way. Jake activated his plasma blade. It hummed to life, glowing with blue-white energy. I appreciate the consideration, but I plan to make you work for it. Throck's mandibles clicked in amusement. I look forward to it. The referee's voice boomed again. Combatants ready? Begin. Throck moved first, and he moved fast. Despite his size, he closed the distance between them in a heartbeat. All 4 of his blades came at Jake from different angles, a whirlwind of plasma and death. Jake barely managed to dodge, rolling to the side and coming up in a defensive stance. The crowd roared with approval. They had expected the human to fall immediately. The fact that Jake dodged even one attack was apparently surprising. Throck pressed the attack, not giving Jake a moment to breathe. His forearms moved in perfect coordination, creating patterns that were almost impossible to defend against. Jake blocked and dodged, retreated and circled, looking for any opening. But there was none. Throck was too good, too experienced. A blade slipped past Jake's defense and struck him in the ribs. The stun setting felt like being hit with a baseball bat wrapped in electricity. Jake gasped and stumbled back, his side going numb. The crowd cheered louder. First blood to the War Master, the referee announced unnecessarily. Jake gritted his teeth and focused. The pain helped clear his mind. He could not fight Throck head-on. He needed to be smarter. He needed to find a weakness. As Throck advanced again, Jake watched carefully. 4 arms meant 4 attack angles, but it also meant divided attention. Each arm had to work independently. There had to be a pattern, a rhythm he could exploit. Throck launched another combination, and this time Jake saw it. The upper right arm always led, setting up the attacks from the other 3. It was subtle, just a fraction of a second, but it was there. Jake waited for the next combination, and when the upper right arm moved, Jake was already responding. He sidestepped, brought his blade up, and scored a hit on Throck's shoulder. The Krillian grunted in surprise and stepped back. The crowd gasped. Jake had landed a hit on War Master Throck. It might have been the first time anyone had done that in years. Throck looked at his shoulder where Jake's blade had struck, then looked at Jake with what might have been respect. "You are better than I expected, human. Much better. Now the real fight begins." The War Master changed his stance, bringing all 4 blades into a defensive position. Then he attacked again, but this time it was different. Faster, more aggressive. Jake realized that Throck had been holding back, testing him. Now the Krillian was taking him seriously. Jake defended desperately, his single blade moving in a blur as he tried to block attacks from 4 different directions. He could not keep this up. His arm was getting tired, his reactions slowing. Another blade got through and struck his shoulder. Then another hit his leg. The stun charges were adding up, making his muscles sluggish and unresponsive. The crowd sensed the end coming. They were on their feet, cheering and shouting. Jake could barely hear them over the pounding of his own heart. He was losing. He had known he probably would, but the reality of it hurt more than the stun hits. Throck seemed to sense it too. "You fought well, human. Better than any opponent I have faced in many years. You should be proud. Now it is time to end this." The War Master stepped back and began to spin, building momentum with all 4 arms. Jake recognized the move from the recordings he had studied. This was Throck's finishing technique, something the aliens called the Krillian Judgment. It was a throw that no one had ever dodged or blocked in recorded history. Time seemed to slow down as Jake watched Throck prepare his final move. The War Master's 4 arms moved in perfect harmony, creating a spinning pattern that was almost hypnotic. 3 of the plasma blades wove through the air in complex arcs, drawing Jake's attention in multiple directions at once. But it was the 4th blade that mattered, the one Throck was about to throw. Jake's body ached from the stun hits he had already taken. His left arm was partially numb and his right leg felt like it was made of lead. Sweat dripped into his eyes, stinging and blurring his vision. Every instinct told him to dodge, to try to get out of the way. But he had studied the recordings. He had seen this move executed dozens of times. There was no dodging the Krillian Judgment. The blade moved too fast, covered too much area. Every species that had tried to avoid it had failed. In the stands, Amy gripped the railing so hard her knuckles turned white. Chris stood beside her, his jaw clenched. They both knew what was coming. They had watched the same recordings Jake had. The Krillian Judgment was unbeatable. It was over. Commander Vexthar sat in the VIP section, his forearms crossed in satisfaction. This had gone exactly as he expected. The human had fought better than anticipated, showing more skill and courage than Vexthar had given him credit for. But skill and courage were not enough. The human would fall now, and humanity's application to the coalition would be rejected. It was almost a shame. The human had earned a measure of respect. Throck completed his spin and released the 4th blade. It left his hand in a blur of blue-white energy, rotating through the air like a deadly disc. The throw was perfect, aimed directly at Jake's center mass. The blade moved faster than sound, faster than most species could even perceive. In less than a second, it would strike Jake in the chest. The stun charge would knock him unconscious and the match would be over. Jake's mind went quiet. Everything else faded away. The roar of the crowd became distant. The pain in his body disappeared. All that existed was the spinning blade coming toward him and his own racing thoughts. He had played baseball in high school, not professionally but well enough to make varsity. He remembered standing at home plate, watching a fastball come at him at 90 miles per hour. He remembered the concentration required to track the ball, to predict where it would be, to swing the bat at exactly the right moment. This was not that different. Faster, yes, much faster. But the principle was the same. Track the object, predict the path, react. Jake's hand moved before his conscious mind fully registered what he was doing. Years of training, of catching balls and dodging attacks, of reflexes honed through countless hours of practice. His right hand shot out, fingers spread, eyes locked on the spinning blade. The plasma weapon was rotating at incredible speed, but Jake could see the pattern. He could see where the handle would be in the next fraction of a second. His hand closed around the handle of the blade mid-flight. The momentum pushed him back a step, but he held on. The plasma blade stopped spinning and hummed in his grip, stable and controlled. Jake stood there, breathing hard, holding Throck's weapon in his hand. The arena fell completely silent. 50,000 aliens stopped breathing at the same moment. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The silence was so complete that Jake could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Throck stood frozen, his 3 remaining blades still held in defensive positions. His mandibles hung open in shock. His eyes, those solid black orbs that reflected no light, somehow managed to convey absolute disbelief. In 300 matches over 20 years of fighting, nobody had ever caught a Krillian judgment throw. Not the 4-armed Kelix warriors. Not the cybernetically enhanced Proxians. Not even other Krillians. Nobody. In the VIP section, Commander Vexithar slowly rose to his feet. His forearms uncrossed and hung limply at his sides. He stared at Jake with an expression that might have been fear or awe, or something the human language had no word for. The holographic displays around the arena replayed the catch from a dozen different angles, each one confirming what everyone had just witnessed, but nobody could quite believe. Amy's hands flew to her mouth. Her eyes were wide with shock. Beside her, Chris let out a long breath and allowed himself a small smile. "I knew it," he whispered. "I knew he could do it." The referee, the floating jellyfish alien, seemed to have forgotten its job. It just hovered there, tentacles waving aimlessly, apparently as shocked as everyone else. Jake looked at the blade in his hand, then at Throck, then at the silent crowd around him. He suddenly felt very aware of all those eyes watching him. Thousands of aliens from dozens of species, all staring at him like he had just done something impossible, which he supposed he had. Did that count as a point? Jake asked, his voice cutting through the silence. The translator carried his words to every corner of the arena. The sound of his voice seemed to break the spell. The crowd erupted, but this time it was not cheering. It was chaos. Aliens were shouting at each other in dozens of different languages. Some were demanding to see the replay again. Others were arguing about what the rules said. A few looked angry, like Jake had somehow cheated, but most just looked stunned. Throck slowly lowered his 3 remaining blades. He walked toward Jake with careful, measured steps. Jake tensed, unsure what to expect. When the War Master reached him, Throck held out one of his upper hands, palm up. It took Jake a moment to realize what the gesture meant. Throck wanted his blade back. Jake flipped the plasma sword around and handed it back handle first. Throck took it carefully, his eyes never leaving Jake's face. Then slowly and deliberately the War Master bowed. It was a deep bow, the kind that required Throck to lower all 4 of his arms and bend at the waist. In Krillian culture, as Jake had learned during his research, this bow was reserved for warriors of equal or greater skill. It was not given lightly. How? Throck asked simply. Jake shrugged, still trying to process what had just happened. Reflexes, I guess. Humans evolved as hunters. We are good at tracking moving objects. We had to be, or we would have starved. No species can track an object moving that fast, Throck said. The Krillian judgment moves at 300 meters per second. No biological eye can follow that velocity. We do not follow it with our eyes alone, Jake explained. We predict. We see the beginning of the throw, we calculate the trajectory, and we react to where we know it will be. We call it hand-eye coordination. It is how we catch balls, shoot arrows, throw spears. We have been doing it for thousands of years. Throck's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep thought in Krillian body language. Your species evolved to hunt prey by throwing projectiles. Yes, we are not the fastest species on Earth. We are not the strongest. But we can throw things accurately at high speeds, and we can track thrown objects better than any other animal on our planet. It kept us alive when we had nothing but rocks and pointed sticks. Commander Vexthar had made his way down to the arena floor. He walked slowly like a man in a dream. When he reached Jake and Throck, he looked at the human captain with an entirely new expression. The dismissive arrogance was gone. In its place was something that might have been respect or fear or both. Captain Morrison, Vexthar said carefully. That was the Krillian judgment throw. In 3,000 years of recorded history, no one has ever caught it. Not even a Krillian has caught another Krillian's judgment throw. Jake nodded. I got lucky. That was not luck, Vexthar said firmly. That was skill. That was ability we did not know existed in the galaxy. You have changed everything with one action. The referee finally recovered enough to speak. I must consult the rule books. This situation has never occurred before. Give me a moment. While the referee consulted its datapad, Jake looked up at the stands and found Amy and Chris. They were both smiling at him, giving him thumbs up. He smiled back, finally allowing himself to feel the adrenaline that was coursing through his system. His hand started to shake slightly, the aftermath of intense stress. Other aliens were descending to the arena floor now. Members of the Galactic Council, ambassadors from various species, and what looked like reporters with recording equipment. They all wanted to talk to Jake, to ask questions, to understand what had just happened. The referee finally cleared its tentacles for attention. According to the rules of combat, catching an opponent's weapon is a legal defensive action. However, the match is not over until one combatant yields or falls unconscious. Do you wish to continue? Jake looked at Throck. The War Master looked back at him. There was a long moment of silence. Then Throck deactivated his plasma blades and placed all 4 weapons on the ground. He straightened up and spoke in a clear, loud voice that carried across the arena. I yield, Throck announced. Captain Jake Morrison of Earth has defeated me. Not through strength or speed, but through a capability I did not know existed. He has earned victory today. The crowd exploded into noise again. This time it was definitely cheering, though mixed with shocked conversation and what sounded like angry arguments. Vexthar stood still, processing what this meant. Throck had yielded. The human had won. Humanity would join the coalition. But more than that, the galaxy had just learned something new. Humans had abilities that no other species possessed. They could track and catch objects moving at impossible speeds. What else could they do? What other surprises did this species have hidden in their biology? Jake felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to find Amy and Chris had made it down to the arena floor. Amy was laughing and crying at the same time. Chris picked Jake up in a bear hug that squeezed the air from his lungs. You did it, Amy kept saying. You actually did it. I cannot believe you did it, Jake smiled. I had good teachers, and apparently good reflexes. The celebration after the match was chaotic. Aliens from dozens of species crowded around Jake, all trying to ask questions at once. The translators struggled to keep up with the multiple languages, creating a confusing babble of sound. Some wanted to shake his hand, though several species did not have hands. Others wanted recordings or images with him. A few just stood at a distance, staring at him like he was some kind of dangerous animal they were not sure how to approach. Commander Vexthar had to call for order multiple times before the crowd finally settled down. He arranged for Jake, Amy, and Chris to be escorted to a private conference room in Gateway 7's diplomatic wing. The room was more comfortable than the Krillian ship, with furniture that was actually sized for humanoid bodies. Jake sank into a chair and immediately felt every bruise and stun impact from the fight. His body was going to hurt for days. Amy brought him water and a medical scanner. You have some minor tissue damage from the stun hits, but nothing serious. You should be fine in a few days with proper rest. Rest sounds good, Jake said, wincing as he shifted in his seat. I do not think I want to fight a Krillian again anytime soon. Chris laughed. I do not think any Krillian will want to fight you, sir. You just became a legend. There was a chime at the door. Vexthar entered, followed by Throck and several other Krillian officers. The War Master still had all 4 of his weapons, but they were deactivated and secured at his belt. Vexthar's expression was difficult to read, but he seemed less hostile than before. Captain Morrison, Vexthar began, I must offer you an apology. I judged your species without proper knowledge. I assumed humanity was weak because you are smaller and newer to space travel. I was wrong. Profoundly wrong. Jake nodded carefully. Apology accepted, Commander, though I hope you understand why we were frustrated with your initial approach. I do, Vexthar said. The Krillian Empire has been the dominant military power in the Coalition for millennia. We have become arrogant. We forgot that strength comes in many forms. What you did today should have been impossible, but you did it anyway. That forces me to reconsider everything I thought I knew about humans. Throck stepped forward. With your permission, Captain, I would like to understand how your species developed such abilities. My scans show that you have no cybernetic enhancements, no genetic modifications. You are completely natural biology. Yet you performed a feat that our best warriors cannot replicate even with technological assistance. Jake glanced at Amy, who nodded encouragingly. It is all about how we evolved, Jake explained. Earth is what we call a high-gravity world compared to most inhabited planets. The gravity made us stronger and faster than we would have been otherwise. But more importantly, humans evolved as persistence hunters. Explain this term, Vexthar said, leaning forward with genuine interest. Persistence hunting, Amy said, pulling up data on her tablet and projecting it as a hologram. Ancient humans would track prey animals for hours, sometimes days. We were not fast enough to catch them in a sprint, but we could keep going long after they exhausted themselves. We would follow them until they literally collapsed from exhaustion. Then we would kill them. The Krillians looked disturbed by this description. Throck's mandibles clicked rapidly. You hunted by making your prey too tired to run. That is terrifying. Chris grinned. That is just the start. While we were chasing these animals, we also threw rocks and spears at them. We had to develop incredible hand-eye coordination to hit moving targets while we were running. Over millions of years, this ability became part of our biology. Our brains developed specialized regions just for tracking thrown objects and calculating trajectories. Jake continued the explanation. Human children start developing these skills almost from birth. We have games based entirely on throwing and catching. Baseball, football, basketball, cricket, tennis. We practice these skills for fun. By the time we reach adulthood, catching thrown objects is automatic. We do not even think about it. Show me, Vexthar demanded. Chris reached into his pocket and pulled out a small ball he always carried, a habit from his baseball playing days. He tossed it gently to Amy, who caught it without looking and tossed it back. Then Chris threw it harder, then faster. Amy caught each throw easily, even the ones that came at her from strange angles. Then she tossed it to Jake, who, despite his injuries, snatched it from the air and threw it back. The Krillians watched in silence. Finally, Chris threw the ball high and hard, making it bounce off the ceiling at an unpredictable angle. Jake's hand shot up and caught it without seeming to track it visually. He had simply known where it would be. Incredible, Throck breathed. All of you can do this, every human? Most humans, Amy said. Some are better than others, obviously. Professional athletes can do things that look like magic even to other humans. But yes, basic catching and throwing is universal among our species. We teach it to children as young as 2 years old. Vexthar was quiet for a long time, processing this information. When he finally spoke, his voice was thoughtful. This changes many things. The Coalition has been facing increased attacks from the Void Swarm in recent months. They are fast, unpredictable, and deadly. Our traditional combat methods struggle against them. But humans with their reflexes and prediction abilities might be effective where we have failed. We would be happy to help, Jake said carefully, though I should mention that we have other abilities too. Humans can endure extreme temperatures, survive on minimal food and water, and adapt to almost any environment. We heal quickly from injuries. We can think creatively under pressure, and we are very good at learning and improving. Tell me more about this last point, Vexthar said. Amy pulled up more data. Human brains are extremely plastic, meaning they can form new connections and adapt to new situations quickly. When we encounter a problem we cannot solve, we experiment until we find a solution. We call it innovation. We have gone from primitive stone tools to faster-than-light travel in roughly 10,000 years. Most species take 10 times that long. Because you experiment, Throck said, understanding dawning in his voice. You try new things even when they might fail. You learn from mistakes. Exactly, Jake confirmed. Failure is not shameful to humans. It is educational. We have a saying, fail fast, fail forward. The faster you fail, the faster you learn. The more you learn, the more you succeed. Vexthar stood up and paced the room with all four arms clasped behind his back. I am beginning to understand why the Void Swarm has not attacked Earth yet. They are careful strategists. They must have scouted your world and decided you were too dangerous to engage. Meanwhile, we assumed you were primitive and ignored you. The swarm was wiser than we were. You mentioned the Void Swarm several times, Jake said. Our briefings on the Coalition mentioned them, but details were scarce.
What exactly are we dealing with?
Throck and Vexthar exchanged glances. Finally, Vexthar spoke. The Void Swarm is a collective intelligence from dark space beyond the galactic rim. They began appearing 5 years ago, attacking outlying colonies and stations. They move in coordinated groups, strike without warning, and adapt to our defensive measures within days. We have lost 17 colony worlds and hundreds of ships. How do they fight? Amy asked, her military training taking over. They use small, fast attack craft that move unpredictably, Throck explained. They dodge our targeting systems and strike from multiple angles simultaneously. Our weapons are designed for large, predictable targets. Krillian warriors are trained for hand-to-hand combat against opponents who follow known patterns. The swarm does neither. They are chaos given form. Jake thought about this, but humans are good at dealing with chaos. Our entire history is responding to unpredictable threats. Weather, predators, diseases, other humans. We are built to handle situations that do not follow rules. Which is why I want to propose something unprecedented, Vexthar said. I want the Krillian Empire to form a direct military alliance with Earth. Not just membership in the coalition, but a formal partnership. We teach you about galactic technology and politics. You teach us about human tactics and capabilities. Together we face the Void Swarm. Jake felt the weight of that offer. This was beyond his authority to accept. This was a decision that would affect all of humanity for generations. But he also recognized the opportunity. A direct alliance with the most powerful military force in the galaxy would put Earth in an incredibly strong position. I will need to communicate with Earth Command, Jake said carefully. But personally, I think this could benefit both our species. Humans have much to learn from the Krillians, and it seems the Krillians might have things to learn from humans. Vexthar's mandibles spread in what Jake was learning to recognize as a genuine Krillian smile. Indeed. I suspect this is the beginning of a very interesting partnership. The galaxy is about to discover that humans are not weak newcomers begging for acceptance. You are survivors, innovators, and warriors in your own right, and the Void Swarm is about to learn a very hard lesson. Throck spoke up. With your permission, Captain, I would like to visit Earth. I want to see the world that created warriors like you. I want to understand how your culture shapes such abilities. Jake smiled. I think that can be arranged. Though I should warn you, Earth gravity might feel heavy to you, and our food might taste strange. But we will make you welcome. Gravity and food are minor concerns, Throck said. Understanding is worth any discomfort. As the meeting concluded, Jake felt a profound sense of accomplishment. He had come to Gateway 7 expecting to fight for humanity's acceptance. Instead, he had earned respect and opened doors that might change the entire future of his species. The journey back to Earth took 3 days at maximum faster than light speed. Jake spent most of that time in communication with Earth Command, explaining everything that had happened at Gateway 7. The response from Earth was overwhelming. News of his victory over Throck had already spread across human space through unofficial channels. Jake was being called a hero, though he felt more like someone who had gotten extremely lucky. Amy found him in the observation deck on the second day of their journey home. She brought coffee, real Earth coffee which tasted like heaven after days of drinking the strange beverages available on alien ships. You know you are famous now, right? Amy said, sitting beside him. Every news network in human space is running the story. They are calling you the man who caught a star, Jake groaned. That is a terrible nickname. I just caught a blade. People catch things every day. Not blades moving at 300 meters per second, Amy pointed out. The science teams are already analyzing the footage. They are saying your reaction time was measured at 47 milliseconds from recognition to action. That is faster than most human athletes by almost 20%. So I am a genetic freak? Amy laughed. No, you are just very well trained. And you stayed calm under pressure. The psychologists think that is actually more important than your physical reflexes. You did not panic. You did not freeze. You saw the blade coming and your brain went directly into response mode. Jake sipped his coffee and watched Earth growing larger in the viewport ahead. Do you think we are ready for this? A military alliance with the Krillians? The Galactic Coalition? All of it? I think we do not have a choice, Amy said seriously. We cannot hide from the galaxy anymore. We are out here now. We have been noticed. Better to be noticed as strong partners than weak targets. Chris entered the observation deck carrying his datapad. Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They want to make an official announcement about humanity's acceptance into the coalition. They are asking if you want to be present for the broadcast. Jake nodded. Tell them yes. Let us finish what we started. An hour later, Jake stood in the communication room with Amy and Chris beside him. The holographic display showed the full Galactic Council assembled in their chambers. with Commander Vexthar standing at the speaker's podium. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the seats, and billions more watched across the galaxy through various broadcasts. Vexthar's voice boomed across the transmission. Members of the Galactic Coalition, we are here to formally recognize humanity as a full member species. Earth and its colonies will be granted all rights and responsibilities of Coalition membership, effective immediately. But more than that, I want to explain why this is such a historic moment. The display shifted to show footage from Jake's fight with Throck. Every angle was shown, every moment analyzed. The catch was replayed a dozen times from different perspectives. The alien crowd murmured in amazement each time they saw it. For millennia, we believed we understood the limits of biological capability. Vexthar continued. We thought that speed, strength, and reaction time were predictable and measurable. We thought we knew what was possible. Humanity has shown us we were wrong. They possess abilities that defy our expectations, not through technology or genetic modification, but through natural evolution shaped by their unique world. The display changed again, showing images of Earth, mountains, oceans, forests, deserts, then images of human history, hunters with spears, athletes in competition, soldiers in training, children playing catch. Earth is a death world, Vexthar said bluntly. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, predators evolved to hunt other predators. Humanity survived this world not by being the strongest or fastest, but by being the smartest and most adaptable. They develop tool use, cooperation, and reflexes that allow them to track and intercept projectiles moving faster than most species can perceive. Throck stepped up beside Vexthar at the podium. I have fought hundreds of matches against the galaxy's finest warriors. I have never been defeated until I faced Captain Jake Morrison, not because he was stronger or faster than me, but because he possessed an ability I did not know existed. An ability that every human shares to some degree. They are natural hunters, natural warriors, natural survivors. The council chamber erupted in conversation. Jake could see some species arguing, others looking excited, still others appearing concerned or even frightened. The revelation that humans had such unusual capabilities was clearly causing strong reactions across the galaxy. Vexthar raised all four arms for silence. I know this news is unsettling to some, but I want to be clear. Humanity comes in peace. They seek cooperation, not conquest. Captain Morrison could have used his victory to demand concessions or special treatment. Instead, he simply asked to be judged fairly. That shows character. That shows wisdom. An ambassador from a species Jake did not recognize stood up. The creature looked like a large bird with 6 wings, and spoke through a series of musical notes that the translator converted to words. If humans are so capable, should we not be concerned? What if they decide to use these abilities against us? Jake had been given permission to speak if needed. He stepped forward. May I address the council? Vexthar gestured for him to continue. Jake took a breath and spoke clearly. Humans are dangerous. I will not deny that. We evolved to be survivors, and that means we are good at fighting when we need to be. But it also means we are good at cooperation. We could not have survived Earth alone. We needed communities, families, teams. We learned that working together made us stronger than competing alone. He paused, making sure his words were being translated correctly. We also learned that diversity makes us stronger. Earth has thousands of different cultures, languages, and perspectives. We fight sometimes, yes, but we also learn from each other. We trade, we share knowledge, we build together. That is what we want to do in the galaxy. Not conquer, but contribute. Not dominate, but participate. Another ambassador stood, this one from a species of floating energy beings. What about the Void Swarm? You mentioned humans might be effective against them. Does this mean you intend to fight? If the Coalition asks for our help, we will provide it, Jake said. The Void Swarm threatens all civilized species. That includes humanity. We would rather fight beside you than wait for them to reach Earth. We are better together than apart. A third ambassador rose, representing a species called the Harmony Collective. They spoke in unison, their 3 heads moving together. The Harmony Collective welcomes humanity. We believe diversity strengthens the Coalition. We believe human capabilities will help protect us all. We vote to accept Earth immediately and without reservation. More ambassadors stood, offering their support. Not all of them, Jake noticed. Some species remained seated, their expressions or body language suggesting skepticism or concern. But the majority seemed positive. Humanity was going to be accepted. The formal vote took another hour. When it was finished, Earth had been approved for full coalition membership by a vote of 312 to 47. It was a strong majority, stronger than Vexthar had expected according to his expression. After the transmission ended, Jake sat down heavily. Amy put a hand on his shoulder. "You did it. We are officially part of the Galactic Coalition now. We are officially part of something much bigger and more complicated than we ever imagined." Jake corrected. "This is just the beginning." "Now comes the hard part," Chris nodded. "Learning galactic politics, navigating alien cultures, figuring out trade agreements and defense treaties, not to mention dealing with the Void Swarm eventually." "One step at a time," Amy said. "Right now, let us just focus on getting home. Earth Command wants to debrief us, and then I'm sure they will have about 1,000,000 tasks for us." Jake smiled. "At least we will have help. The Krillians are serious about this alliance. Vexthar is already sending technical advisors and military liaisons to Earth. And Throck really does want to visit. I think he sees us as worthy opponents now, maybe even friends." "Strange how that works," Chris said. "We nearly killed each other in combat, and now we are allies." "Respect," Jake said simply. "Throck respects us now because we proved ourselves. That is what the whole challenge was about. Not winning or losing, but showing we deserve to be taken seriously. And catching that blade accomplished that better than any diplomatic speech could have." The ship shuddered slightly as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Through the viewport, Earth hung in space, blue and white and beautiful. Home. Jake felt a surge of emotion looking at it. He had left Earth as a diplomat on an uncertain mission. He was returning as the human who changed humanity's place in the galaxy. "Sir, we are receiving communication requests from about 30 different Earth agencies," Amy reported, checking her datapad. "Military command, civilian government, news networks, scientific institutions. Everyone wants to talk to you," Jake sighed. "Tell them I will make a public statement once we land. For now, I just want to enjoy the view." As their ship approached Earth, Jake thought about everything that had happened. He had been terrified going into that fight. He had expected to lose, but he had tried anyway because giving up was not in his nature. It was not in human nature, and that decision, that refusal to yield even against impossible odds, had changed everything. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. They were part of a community of species spanning the galaxy. They would face challenges and dangers that previous generations could never have imagined, but they would face them together, with allies and friends and shared purpose. Jake looked at Amy and Chris, his crew, his friends. They had been with him through everything, supporting him, trusting him, believing in him even when he doubted himself. That was what humans did. They supported each other. They worked together. They refused to give up. "What are you thinking about?" Amy asked, noticing his expression. Jake smiled. "I am thinking that we are going to be fine. Humanity, I mean. We survived Earth. We survived getting to space. We survived first contact with aliens who thought we were weak. We will survive whatever comes next. That is the spirit," Chris said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Though maybe next time we can survive without you catching thrown plasma blades at super speed. My heart cannot take much more of that." They all laughed, and Jake felt the tension of the past weeks finally starting to ease. They had done it. Against all odds, they had proven that humanity belonged among the stars. Now came the real work of building a future in a galaxy that was much bigger, stranger, and more wonderful than anyone had ever imagined. As their ship descended toward Earth, Jake looked one last time at the blade Throck had given him as a gift. It was deactivated now, just a handle with a power cell, but it represented something important. Respect earned through action. Understanding built through challenge. Friendship forged through conflict. The galaxy had frozen when the human caught the blade mid-air. Now the galaxy was watching to see what humans would do next. Jake did not know exactly what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain. It was going to be interesting.